The way we take care of ourselves is ever evolving. And what we know for sure is that our mind and spirit are linked to our physical body, and that our wellness seems to extend into our communities and the planet we all share.
It is very, very clear that wellness is interconnected.
We love spending time with you to explore and practice the breakthroughs, the insights, and the passions of incredible people helping us all see the world in a whole new light.
This is Health Gig. Today is our second part of our discussion with Holly Copeland. If you missed last week's first part of Holly's discussion with us, go on back and listen to that, and then come back and join us when you're finished. Holly, you talked about how before you were in scarcity in a way, right? That you were living from that and actually living from a lot of fear. Fear that you were ruining the earth and taking too much and that kind of stuff. Again, that's changed now because you live from abundance you talked about. But how does the current materialistic paradigm of consciousness keep us stuck in the suffering?
This sense that we are, what we're leading into is a conversation on consciousness and what is consciousness. And traditionally, we've thought about consciousness as something that we have inside our brains. Like I have my consciousness, and Doro, you have yours, and Tricia, you have yours, right? And actually what scientists are finding is that they can't actually find, there's nowhere in the brain where consciousness is made. This calls into question what even is consciousness. I'm really fascinated by the work of people like Donald Hoffman, scientist at UC Irvine, who is bringing to light science that's actually showing, it's proving out what I would say what the yogis have always known, that actually everything is consciousness. This idea that the Buddhists have that form is emptiness, emptiness is form, or that there's no separation is actually because there is no place where I end and you begin. Everything is in consciousness, everything. And I love how teacher I've studied with, Rupert Spira, he makes this analogy that consciousness is like the next, our understanding of consciousness. And this relates because the materialist paradigm is a paradigm where it's the Newtonian idea of physics that there's such a thing called matter and that it's something that is separate from us. Stepping out of the materialist paradigm is analogous to the flat earth, to now we see that, oh, the earth is round, right? And then the next great thing that happened was we understood that the earth went around the sun didn't go around the earth. And the next great shift is going to be to understand that we don't have consciousness in our brains. Everything is consciousness. It's all one. That, to me, that shift that is actually what we're in right now. We're stepping out of the materialist paradigm into the quantum world that is holographic, that everything is one. You know, this is why paranormal and near-death experiences and all these unexplainable things that hard science hasn't been able to explain. In my work, where I work with people in distance healing sessions, and I can work with people thousands of miles away, and I can feel what's happening for them because we're all connected, because there's a lot more than Newtonian physics going on.
How can we overcome the trap of not enough and live from wholeness?
My apologies if that got kind of, hairy, scientific, or if I lost anybody, because ultimately, right, it is really about how do I show up in love for my family and feel wholeness? Like, that's really the most important thing for every human being, right? Everyone listening wants to just know, how do I feel more love? How do I show up, right, in greater love? This work is really about stepping out of the duality, that sense of me behind the eyes that we're so locked into, and moving into more of a heart-centered place. And I'll just give one example, because it's actually easier to show than to explain. So if even both of you right now and everybody listening want to do a little experiment with me, okay? Notice where you're looking from. Like I'm looking out at a lamp, and it feels like there's a me in here and a lamp out there. Just kind of feel that and notice, where are you aware from? Like, to me, it feels like I'm aware from behind the eyes, kind of a space right there. And notice what that feels like. So both of you, just ask either of you, do you have kind of, that's our ordinary way of being, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I'll invite you now to move your center of awareness, drop it, and actually close your eyes. Anybody listening, don't close your eyes if you're driving, but otherwise close your eyes and let your awareness, center of your awareness, drop down into your heart space. So you might just feel being aware from your throat, within your throat. Let it drop down, be aware from your shoulders, within your shoulders. And then move so you're just aware of your heart. And then just feel what it feels like to be aware in your heart. And then what I want you to do is, I'm going to give the instruction and then open your eyes. When you open your eyes, I want you to look at the same thing you were looking at before, but imagine you were looking out from the eyes behind your heart, as though your heart had eyes. And you looked out from behind your heart. And just notice, what does that feel like? Is it the same as before, or does it feel different?
Definitely feels different. It feels like it's a connection is really what it feels like, that we're closer to it in some way and it's part of us in some way.
Yeah, beautiful. I feel that too. It feels more connected. Feels less like a hard division between me and the thing, right? And more like, I kind of feel like we're sort of the same, or in a funny way. This is just a small but really important example of where we operate from affects our reality. And so the teachers I worked with taught me that if you can learn to stay centered in your heart space and actually shift your perception from your heart, it changes your way of being in the world, and you actually have a choice. We don't have to operate from behind the eyes that most of us maybe feel like we've been trained to and raised to.
It kind of softens things, softens the world in a way.
Agreed, it softens the world. What if you lived your whole life from just making this one shift?
Yeah, like you said, it gives you a little bit more sense of connectedness, and it gives you the ability to know that you could actually create maybe the life you want or the world you want.
More feels possible.
More feels possible, yeah.
Also notice the critical judgmental voice that might want to analyze whatever you're looking at. Is that voice there when you're looking out from the eyes of your heart?
No, it's gone.
Isn't that amazing? Like that one shift and the critical voice, the judgmental voice disappears.
Is this part of rewiring our brains?
It
Tell us
is.
about that, because I know you've done it. Dora and I were talking about it this morning and looking at all the things that you've accomplished, and that seems to be something that you're really out front with. So can you talk to us about that?
So I got really fascinated with meditation and the way that meditation changes the brain. And so I actually got really geeky with using EEG headset. And I did this for about 2 years. I wore one every time I meditated. The little scientist in me wanted to study what's happening to my brain when I meditate. And I tracked my own data and then learned all the research that shows that when we meditate, we move out of our beta brainwave state. That's that thinking, highly analytical state of mind that's very busy, into a more open, receptive alpha state. The process of meditation, in a way, is training your brain to move out of beta into alpha and theta. And what the science says is that the more we do that, we rewire those pathways. It's like before we were going down one dirt road and then we went off on a 2-track. We went off road and then we created 2-track, and then it becomes more and more of an established road. So we can create those new pathways if we start using, our brain differently. And meditation is one of the classic paths, spiritual paths to do that, to retrain us out of the beta brainwave state. To me, it's so exciting because what the science shows is that like even just 8 weeks of mindfulness and meditation training will change your brain. And that's what I found. I don't know about you in your mindfulness, but I found very quickly I felt differently.
We've had Richie Davidson from the University of Wisconsin on, and he talks all about that. Of course, that's what his center does. It's a really interesting conversation.
Totally. I love the work of Richie Davidson and Healthy Minds Institute. Yeah, it's fantastic what he's doing. And I love how he tells the story of when they took the EEGs over to Tibet and gave them to the Tibetan monk. They put them on their heart. They were like wanting to put them on their heart, not on their heads, because to them, you would want to be measuring the heart. That's the most important part to measure.
How do you work with people that are saying, I really find this hard and, I can't get from here to there? How do you work with them, or what are your suggestions?
The first suggestion I make is to come up with a dedicated place to meditate. And I actually recommend having an altar. Oftentimes people can think, ooh, I'm not religious. That feels a little confronting to people. But I think of an altar more as just a sacred space. It can be a candle. It can be a picture of your children. It can be anything that's claiming there's something special going on here. I'm doing this inner work. And whatever that looks like to you, the point is to give yourself to demark that space in that sacred way, I think is so important, because if we don't create space for something in our lives, it won't happen.
That's so true. Right.
You have to put your flag in the ground and you have to claim it. And these are the tools that help support me doing this. And that includes first an altar of some sort and a space. It could be a meditation cushion, but it can be a chair. A lot of people find chairs more comfortable. And then time. You have to decide when you're going to do it. For most people, the morning is the best, because usually for most people, myself included, once you get going in your day, you've lost it. It's too late. Also, your mind is in a more receptive theta state, actually, and science shows this in the morning. Yes.
And why is that? Because you're waking up and you haven't been using your brain, or what is it?
Yes, exactly. So when we're in sleep, we're in that delta and theta state, and then we wake up. So those are those slower brain waves, right? In order to sleep, we switch from the faster brain waves to the slower delta deep sleep and theta, the REM state when we're dreaming. And so when we come out of sleep, we're still in that theta state. And that lasts. After you wake up, you're still for quite some time, maybe an hour or two.
Oh, really?
You're still in more of a theta state. You're harnessing the state you're already in to get there. That's why yogis wake up at 3, 4 a.m., because that's actually when the peak of that brainwave is. That's why the Dalai Lama meditates then. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's so interesting. And then you can stay in that state. It just elevates your practice or your state. Okay.
Yes,
and then you
exactly.
So you do all kinds of work. What do you offer? Because your website is beautiful. So you do one-on-one. Tell us everything that you offer and what you do.
So I do one-on-one. I love working with people one-on-one, supporting them wherever they're at. Usually people come to me that have some element of wanting to live in a more joyful, consistently joyful, happy, well state, in that state of what has been called fundamental well-being. And it's really moving people into that state of fundamental well-being where you fundamentally know everything will be okay, and allowing and doing the work. So then we do a lot of work with whatever pain they have, their inner turmoil and pain. And I do a lot of somatic therapy with people, working within to process the grief and the pain and allow it to move through, and teach them how we can sit with pain and allow it to move through so that we can show up in joy and well-being. And then I do a lot of work with tuning forks, actually.
Tell us what that is.
Yes. We're fascinated.
Yeah. So I started, after I did my human potential coaching and I got certified as that, I was introduced to this woman named Eileen McCusick, who is amazing. And she developed a technique called biofield tuning. What she discovered, tuning forks work with our bio or our energetic field. Yogically, this is called the aura, but in science now, we call this the biofield, and there's science on this energetic field around the body. So our energy doesn't just end at the edges of our skin. It goes out several feet beyond the body. And what Eileen discovered was that we all have an energetic field that extends beyond the body, because we're all energy, right? We know this from Max Planck and, these various physicists who know, right? Everything jiggles. That energetic field contains information inside the body. So our body is actually taking cues from the field outside. And what Eileen discovered was that what we experience as pain or grief in our organs or disease actually has its origins in the field. And so if we bring a vibrating tuning fork, like a healing fork, like a 528 or a 174 hertz fork, into the field in certain spots, just like with the principle of resonance, just like two vibrating violin strings will start to resonate even in the same room, it works the same way. So if you put a fork into somebody's field, then a place of dissonance in their field where basically pain or grief will start to resonate with this fork and clear whatever is happening inside the body. So it's actually an incredibly powerful healing modality.
But what happens to the forks?
So the forks just do their thing. You can hear the frequencies kind of, wobbling around. And so I can hear it as the practitioner. I can hear the fork responding to the differences in the energy in the field until it clears whatever was creating the dissonance. It clears up.
So when you start talking about energy and how it can neither be created nor destroyed, and that we're all energy and moving amongst each other's energy fields, talk to us a little bit about the attraction of energy and what happens and people that we bring in, people that leave, or does that make any sense to you at all?
What makes sense to me is that we each have a soul signature, a blueprint frequency that we're born with. Through different experiences in our life, the field gets colored with different things. We pick up other people's energy. We take on the energy of our mother or our father or different traumas that happen. And I think we're in a process of coming back to our soul signature, our soul song. What you call bioindividuality, I would say is our soul song, our soul song, our soul symphony that we're singing. The more we learn to recognize what that soul song is and feel it and live it, we strengthen it. We become more and more us. That's how it feels like for me, like I'm more and more becoming me. And then when I come into a field of somebody else that maybe used to trigger me before, it doesn't trigger me the way it used to, because it's like I'm the stronger signal of me and they're doing them, but I'm not taking it on. I'm not confused anymore. I think when we take on somebody's energy, we're not really, it's because we actually aren't sitting strongly in our own. Does that resonate?
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I love the term soul song. So what you're saying is that's the song of our soul, that each one of us have an individual, unique to our own soul song.
Absolutely.
As you said, it's bioindividuality in the sense that we are each a unique human being with our own unique soul song. And so if we journey back to that, we're going to be able to sing and live the way we want to live with our own voice, with our own song.
Exactly. And you can see it, right? When somebody's really living their authentic being, it's so beautiful. It's magnetic. We're like so happy for them, right?
But because we're all beings on this earth, what are your thoughts that while we do this and we do surrender and we are letting life walk through us, but we are human beings, right? I know some folks do reach enlightenment, but what are your thoughts on that?
I dove down this rabbit hole, for years. Like, what is enlightenment really? I mean, I love how Adyashanti says enlightenment is simply the end of resistance to what is.
Yes. Well, you started by saying that. And I thought, yeah, we should explore that.
I mean, that is my experience too.
Mm-hmm.
I would never call myself enlightened. I think when there's an I who wants to label, like by definition, that's not it.
Right.
Clearly, I can look out at some of the incredible yogis who have amazing siddhis or powers. And, we might say that they're more enlightened in some sense, but I actually think that enlightenment is us living our pure soul song. It's not resisting what is, it's feeling fully embodied, alive, whole. It's the end of seeking, would be another way to say it,
Yes.
right? If there's no seeking anymore, if there's no search, there's no one seeking, trying to get anywhere. It's just like,
Acceptance of what's here now.
exactly. It's all beautiful what's here now. For me, the more I live from and land in that place of just feeling deep acceptance for what's here, then the more life awakens in me, the more life feels like it comes alive. If I had to qualitatively say, is that enlightenment? Yeah, I think so. I think that's it. I think
Right.
that we can't touch
yeah.
it, but it's a process of unfolding more and more into really allowing life to, spirit, source, God, divine, whatever you want to call it, whatever your words are for it. It's like allowing the great mystery to move through us and to live life as that more and more and more.
That's just so beautiful. And we're so happy that you've moved into this work. So
Yes, thank you.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your work with plant medicine?
I would love to, because it actually has been another really important aspect of my journey. And I do love talking about it, even though I'm going to just say, my mom's like, do you really have to talk about that so much? She's like, I'm not sure people are ready for that.
Yeah, I imagine.
It's such beautiful work. I just feel incomplete if I don't share that I've done a number of journeys in Costa Rica, and I was most recently in Peru working with ayahuasca. And I have such incredible respect for plant medicine and for the indigenous tribes there and the healing work and the space that they hold with this incredible plant medicine. It is not for everybody. And I just want to say that right out. When people ask me about it, I say, you feel called to this medicine, For those listening, don't feel like you need to go run out and do it. But if it's something that you feel called to, it's incredible. It has been the most difficult. I've experienced the most fear, the most pain that I've ever felt on this medicine, and also the greatest joy and the most love and the most opening. And so it's incredible.
So, if you're called to work with plant medicine, how do you go about finding sort of a reputable place to go and how to do it?
It's a great question because it is so important. If I've learned anything, I've learned that it's really, really important who you do it with. I think it's so important that people do this medicine with the right teachers because the energy that is held when working with this medicine is so important. I worked first with some indigenous tribes at Blue Spirit in Costa Rica, an incredible facility there, and with some Colombian shamans. And then I went to Peru and went to a place called Aya Healing Retreat Center. That's also a beautiful retreat center. And there are others, but I would say just, make sure that you do your research and your homework and you've got reviews and there are established people with some kind of credibility. You do your vetting.
So, what's next for you?
Well, I have a book that I am releasing later this year with Unbound Press called Inner Rewilding. Surprise,
Oh,
surprise.
good.
And I'm very excited about that. And I'm also unfolding some retreats around this work, around supporting people on their own journey of inner rewilding.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It was just really quite beautiful. And Holly, we really touched on some things that I think will get us all really thinking. And not only thinking, but appreciating and full of gratitude for each one of our soul songs. And that ability to go find that song if we're not feeling like we're singing it right now. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. You're so welcome. Thank you so much for your presence, both of you, and your beautiful questions, and for the work you're doing in the world to bring these incredible shows to people. It's really
Thank you,
inspiring.
Holly.
Thank you for joining us on Health Gig. We loved having you with us. We hope you'll tune in again next week. In the meantime, be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast and follow us on healthgigpod.com. I'm Tricia.
And I'm Doro.
Be well.